तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविविरीतं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भुरिदा जनाः. So in this class we read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which is the English translation of the Bengali original, Sri Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, which is the dialogues, the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, which were recorded in his diary by Mahendranath Gupta, who was a school teacher, very close devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, and later published in the form of this book. And this English translation was done here in New York in the 1940s, early 40s, by Swami Nikhilananda. All right, so today we're going to read Sunday, April 15th, 1883. 15th April, 1883. And in my book, the page is 210. 210, if anybody's got this edition. So Sundays, often you'll find these dates are Sundays or Saturdays, because these are the days on which the devotees, so they were working on other days. It's the weekends they could go to the Kali temple in Dakshineshwar and meet with Sri Ramakrishna. And Mahendranath Gupta also, he would go mostly on weekends. And so most of these things were recorded on weekends. This particular thing was not in the Kali temple in Dakshineshwar. It was at the house of a devotee. So some of these dialogues, some of these encounters, they took place in the houses of various devotees who invited Sri Ramakrishna, often on religious festivals, occasions. So this is in the house of a close devotee, Shurendra. And the occasion was the worship of the Divine Mother in the form of Annapurna. So Annapurna Puja. In Bengal, God is worshipped as Mother, and in multiple forms. There's Durga, that's the most famous one, Durga Puja, but also Kali. That's the form in which Sri Ramakrishna worshipped God, the Divine Mother in the form of Kali. Annapurna is another form. Jagadhatri is another form. Lakshmi and Saraswati are other forms. All right, so I'm going to read this portion, 15th April 1883, but I'm going to read through it at a stretch. It's such a beautiful sequence that instead of stopping and commenting, we can just listen to what's going on. This is full of song and dance and ecstasy and the love of God, love of the personal God, God in the form of the Divine Mother. And here you will see the worship is of the Divine Mother, but most of the singing and it's about Krishna. So this is another thing to notice, that in Hinduism, God is worshipped with form, multiple forms, but there is no conflict, because there is an inner understanding that all these forms are of the same divinity. With form, without form, form and formless, they are of the same divinity. So there is no conflict there. I'll just read through. Surendra, a beloved lay disciple of the Master, had invited him to his house on the auspicious occasion of the Annapurna Puja. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening, 6 o'clock, when Sri Ramakrishna arrived there with some of his devotees. The image of the Divine Mother had been installed in the worship hall. At her feet lay hibiscus flowers and vilva leaves. From her neck hung a garland of flowers. Sri Ramakrishna entered the hall and bowed down before the image. Then he went to the open courtyard, where he sat on a carpet surrounded by his devotees and disciples. A few bolsters lay on the carpet, which was covered with a white linen sheet. He was asked to lean against one of those, but he pushed it aside. Little comment here. So this is something that in sort of, I would say, late 19th century, early 20th century, Indians would know. So when you went to a gentleman's house, you would sit down in one of those on the mat, and it would be covered with cloth, and there would be these pillows, basically. This says bolster, it's a pillow. So multiple pillows when you could lean back. Now, leaning back on pillows and sitting and enjoying the proceedings, that's a sign of what one we would call a dandy, or so a gentleman, somebody who is cultivated and upper class. So that's the thing. So Sri Ramakrishna pushes the pillows aside. They asked him, please lean back on this and relax. And he pushes it aside. He was asked to lean against one of these, but he pushed it aside. Master, to the devotees, to lean against a bolster. There's a footnote. Oh, there's a footnote here. It explains this. Rich and aristocratic persons seeking comfort generally sit in this fashion. Okay. I needn't have explained it. So there's a footnote. To lean against a bolster. You see, it is very difficult to give up vanity. You may discriminate. Discriminate means investigate. Saying that the ego is nothing at all. But still it comes. Nobody knows from where. A goat's legs jerk for a few moments even after its head has been cut off. Or perhaps you are frightened in a dream. You shake off sleep and are wide awake, but still you feel your heart palpitating. Egotism is exactly like that. You may drive it away, but still it appears from somewhere. And then you look sullen and say, what? I have not been shown proper respect. So the way, it's so vivid. Somebody who feels slighted or insulted has a sullen face and says that didn't respect me, didn't show me the respect. I didn't get the respect that I deserve. They didn't even give me a pillow to lean against. Kedar, one should be lowlier than a straw and patient as a tree. This is a Vaishnava verse well known in the Gaudiya Vaishnava sect of practice of humility. So it says Trinadapi sunechena taroriva shahishnuna. So Trina means grass. Be lowlier, be more humble, more ordinary. What could be more ordinary than a blade of grass? Be more humble than that, lower than that. And be as patient as a tree, or more patient than a tree. A tree puts up with all sorts of indignities and the abuse of people around, the animals and human beings. It silently bears with it. So bear with that. So he quotes that. Kedar quotes. Kedar is one of the devotees. He quotes that. It's a famous saying that people know. Vaishnavas know this. One should be lowlier than a straw. Yeah, actually it means straw, a blade of grass. Anyway, lowlier than a straw and a patient as a tree. Master, as for me, I consider myself as a speck of dust of the devotee's feet. Vaidyanath arrived. He was a well-educated man, a lawyer of the High Court of Calcutta. With folded hands, he saluted the master and took his seat at one side. Surendra, to the master, he is one of my relatives. Master, yes, I see he has a nice nature. This is high praise coming from Sri Ramakrishna. He would see into a person's nature, and so when he says his nice nature means this is the person with spiritual potential. Yes, I see he has a nice nature. Surendra, he has come here because he wants to ask you a question or two. Master, to Vaidyanath, all that you see is the manifestation of God's power. No one can do anything without this power. But you must remember that there is not an equal manifestation of God's power in all things. Vidyasagar once asked, this is Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, is one of the most famous reformers in 19th century Bengal. Vidyasagar once asked me whether God endowed some with greater power than others. I said to him, If there are no greater and lesser manifestations of his power, then why have we taken the trouble to visit you? Have you grown two horns? So it stands to reason that God exists in all beings as the all-pervasive power. But the manifestations of his power are different in different beings. And he did not say this without reason. Remember, Vaidyanath, the subtext is always important. Vaidyanath is a man of the world, very accomplished, well-to-do, successful, and also spiritual. And so Sri Ramakrishna says all these differences that you see, some are more successful than others, some are doing better, some are more spiritual, some are not. All of this is the play of God's power, Shakti basically. It's a play of the Divine Mother. And yes, there are differences. It is true that the same God, same divinity is everywhere. But if that's so, then why is there high and low? Why is there good and bad? So that is the play of the power of God. Or in another language, it's the play of the Divine Mother. Vaidyanath, sir, I have a doubt. People speak of free will. They say that a man can do either good or evil according to his will. Is it true? Are we really free to do whatever we like? Again, remember, he's a lawyer, right? So the whole question of punishment, of law, criminality and punishment, it depends on free will. So if you do not accept free will, then the whole thing about human society, all sides of it, politics, you go and vote. It's free will. You're assuming free will. You go to consumers, economics, you go to a supermarket and you buy stuff. It's assuming free will. Even the advertisement which is seeking to influence us assumes free will. Then religion itself assumes free will. Because otherwise, why would you tell a person to do this and don't do that? Do's and don'ts assumes free will. If you don't have free will, it's no use giving instruction. And most of all, law, which Vaidyanath is, he's a lawyer. Law, when you accuse somebody, punish somebody, what you're assuming is out of free will, this person has done evil, whereas he could have chosen not to do evil, and therefore deserves punishment. This is the crucial thing on which law works. Crucial principle on which law works. And notice how Vaidyanath framed his question. They say that a man can do either good or evil according to his will. Is this true? Are we really free to do whatever we like? And look at Sri Ramakrishna's answer. Master, everything depends on the will of God. The world is his play. He has created all these different things, great and small, strong and weak, good and bad, virtuous and vicious. This is all his Maya, his sport. In Bengali it would have meant her, but here it's translated as his. You must have observed that all the trees in a garden are not of the same kind. As long as a man has not realized God, he thinks he is free. It is God himself who keeps this error in man. Otherwise, sin would have multiplied. Man would have not been afraid of sin, and there would have been no punishment for it. He is answering Vaidyanath's question. See, it's a legal, so there's a basis for the legal system also. But do you know the attitude of one who has realized God? He feels, I am the machine and thou, O Lord, art the operator. I am the house and thou art the indweller. I am the chariot and thou art the driver. I move as thou movest me. I speak as thou makest me speak. So, in ignorance, you feel that you have free will. And all of our society, it's all based on this ignorance. And this ignorance is due to, is the Lord's will. That's also part of the play of God. But if you break free of this ignorance and if you become enlightened, you will realize that nothing here, this is the play of one cosmic power behind all of this, and nothing here is really up to us. The enlightened one sees this and then plays his or her part in this cosmic drama, but plays it as a worship of the Divine Mother. Okay, I promise not to comment. Let me read. Maybe at the end. Let me finish reading. Now notice. To Vaidyanath, after saying all this, to Vaidyanath, it is not good to argue. Isn't that so? He's saying this to a lawyer. It is not good to argue. Isn't that so? And notice what Vaidyanath says. Vaidyanath says, yes, sir. The desire to argue disappears when a man attains wisdom. Very interesting reply from a person like him. The master, out of his stock of a dozen English words, said, thank you, in the most charming way, and all laughed. Master to Vaidyanath, you will make spiritual progress. People don't trust a man when he speaks about God. Even if a great soul affirms that he has seen God, still the average person will not accept his words. He says to himself, if this man has really seen God, then let him show him to me. But can a man learn to feel a person's pulse in one day? He must go about with a physician for many days. Only then can he distinguish the different pulses. This refers to the traditional Indian doctor who, diagnoses your illness by feeling the pulse of the pulse of the patient. But it's an expert who can do that. So by the pulse beat, the expert Vaidya, the traditional doctor, can identify what's wrong with the patient. But we won't know that until we keep company with the expert and learn from the expert. He must be in the company of those with whom the examination of the pulse has become a regular profession. Can anyone and everyone pick out yarn of a particular count? If you are in that trade, you can distinguish in a moment a 40-count thread from a 41. Beautiful examples. The kirtan was about to begin, so the congregational singing with the musical instruments, the drums and all of that. Some Vaishnavas were seated on one side with their mridangas, which is a big drum, and cymbals. A drummer began to play on his instrument preparatory to the singing. The sweet and melodious sound of the mridanga filled the courtyard, calling to mind the ecstatic kirtan of Sri Gauranga, that is Sri Chaitanya. The master passed into a deep spiritual state. Now and then he looked at the drummer and said, ah, my hair is all standing on end. The singers asked what kind of song they should sing. The master said humbly, something about Gauranga, Chaitanya, something about Gauranga, if you please. The kirtan began. They sang about the celestial beauty of Sri Gauranga. This is a song. The beauty of Gauranga's face glows brighter than the brightest gold. His smile illumines all the world. Who cares for even a million moons shining in the blue autumn sky? The chief musician added improvised lines as they sang. This is part of the style of kirtan. The musician will add lines to it. So the chief musician added improvised lines as they sang. Oh friend, his face shines like the full moon. So when they're singing that, who cares for even a million moons shining in the blue autumn sky, this chief musician will add after that, oh friend, his face shines like the full moon. Another line, but it does not wane nor has it any stain. It illumines the devotee's heart. Again he improvised. His face is bathed, his means Chaitanya. His face is bathed with the essence of a million moons. At these words, the master went into deep samadhi. After a short while, he regained consciousness of the sense world. Then he suddenly stood up, overpowered by his spiritual mood, and sang improvised lines with the professionals, thinking of himself to be a milkmaid of Vrindavan, gone mad with the beauty of Sri Krishna's form. Whose fault is it, my mind's or his beauties? In the three worlds I see nothing but my beloved Krishna. The master danced and sang. All remained spellbound as they watched. The chief musician sang the words of a gopi. O flute, Pray stop. Can you not go to sleep? Flute means the flute which Krishna plays. One of the musicians added a new line. How can it sleep? It rests on Krishna's lips. The master sat down. The music went on. They sang, assuming the mood of Radha. My eyes are blinded, my ears are deaf. I have lost the power of smell. All my senses are paralyzed. But alas, why am I left alone? Finally, the musicians sang of the union of Radha and Krishna. Radha and Krishna are joined at last in the Nidhu Grove of Vrindavan. Incomparable their beauty and limitless their love. And so on. It's a long song. As the music came to a close, the master said, Bhagavata Bhakta Bhagavan, and bowed low to the devotees seated on all sides. He touched with his forehead the ground made holy by the singing of the sacred music. It was now about 9:30 in the evening. Surendra entertained the master and the devotees with a sumptuous feast. When it was time to take leave of their host, the master, the devotees, and Surendra entered the worship hall and stood before the image of the Divine Mother, Annapurna. Surendra to the master, no one has sung anything about the Divine Mother today. Master, pointing to the image, look at the beauty of the hall. The light of the Divine Mother seems to have lighted the whole place. Such a sight fills the heart with joy. Grief and desire for pleasure disappear. But can one not see God as formless reality? Of course one can, but not if one has the slightest trace of worldliness. The rishis of olden times renounced everything and then contemplated Satchidananda, the indivisible Brahman. The Brahmagyanis of modern times, is a footnote, a reference to the members of the Brahmo Samaj, sing of God as immutable, homogeneous. It sounds very dry to me. It seems as if the singers themselves don't enjoy the sweetness of God's bliss. One doesn't want a refreshing drink made with sugar candy if one is satisfied with mere coarse treacle. How do you pronounce that? Treacle. Just see how happy you are looking at the image of the deity. But those who always cry after the formless reality do not get anything. They realize nothing either inside or outside. The master sang a song to the Divine Mother. O Mother, ever blissful as thou art, do not deprive thy worthless child of bliss. My mind knows nothing but thy lotus feet. The king of death scowls at me terribly. Tell me, Mother, what shall I say to him? It was my heart's desire to sail my boat across the ocean of this mortal life. O Durga, with thy name upon my lips, I never dreamt that thou wouldst drown me here in the dark waters of this shoreless sea. Both day and night I swim among its waves, chanting thy saving name, yet even so there is no end, O Mother, to my grief. If I am drowned this time in such a plight, no one will ever chant thy name again. Again he sang, repeat, O mind, my mother Durga's hallowed name. Whoever treads the path, repeating Durga, Durga, Shiva himself protects with his almighty trident. Thou art the day, O mother, thou art the dusk and the night. Sometimes thou art man and sometimes woman art thou. Thou mayst even say to me, step aside, go away, yet I shall cling to thee, O Durga. Unto thy feet, as thine anklets, I shall cling, making their tinkling sound. Mother, when as the kite thou soarest in the sky, there in the water beneath as a minnow I shall be swimming. Upon me thou wilt pounce and pierce me through with thy claws. Thus, when the breath of life forsakes me in thy grip, do not deny me the shelter of thy lotus feet. The master saluted the divine image. As he came down the steps, he called softly to Rakal, Swami Brahmananda, who was attending to him. Where are my shoes? Are they missing? It's always perennial problem in India. Yeah. Your shoes get stolen. Mine were stolen too. And in the monastery, and they put up cameras there. So we reviewed the picture from the cameras, and they showed me going up the temple, keeping my new sandals there. And they were new sandals, so they kept them there. And I went to the temple, and they showed another man whose cloth was wet because he had gone to the for a dip in the holy river in the Ganga. And then after, so it's traditional. You take a dip in the holy river, dust purified. You come and first you bow down before God. So he goes and bows down before God. And then he comes down from the temple stairs and he looks this way and that way and quickly puts on my sandals and walks away. I was just speaking with somebody who has just returned from India. And we're talking about how India has been changing over the decades. And this person said to me, well, you can clearly see signs of development and change and progress. The problem of stealing shoes has disappeared altogether. So that's progress. The master saluted the divine image as he came down the steps. He called softly to Rakhal, where are my shoes? Are they missing? As the master got into the carriage, Surendra and the other devotees bowed down before him. Then the carriage started for Dakshineshwar. The moon still lighted the streets. So what a beautiful sequence, actually. We have time, so let me now comment on. We'll go back and. So the question of free will, and this is an old question, philosophical question. Recently, Richard Sapolsky, I think, he's written this book, Determined. So he's a professor at, I think, Stanford, probably. Stanford, right? And this book is making the rounds. He's made such a strong case. It's a difficult book. He's made such a strong case for there being no free will. There being no free will. And this goes so counter to our intuitions about ourselves. But he says those intuitions are just delusions. And look what Sri Ramakrishna says here, that when you're enlightened, you see that there is really no free will. And it's an illusion that God has placed within us. When you become enlightened, you see there is freedom, the freedom of the will of only one force, one power, that is the power of God. And that's what's doing everything. Swami Turiyananda, somebody asked him that what's the difference between Sri Ramakrishna's Advaita and Shankara's Advaita? And Swami Turiyananda said that Shankara emphasized how you get free, how you get freedom. You realize that you're not the body mind, you are the free existence, consciousness place. You realize that. I am that. And Sri Ramakrishna taught how you're going to get free, and then how do you continue to live in this world. And then Swami Turiyananda elaborates that you realize who you are, you realize the truth about what's going on here, and then live the rest of your life as a play with the mother of the universe. So everything that's being done here is being done by her. It's her will. And to acknowledge that and play our part, Swami Vivekananda says that we are blessed that we have been sent out here to play our part. Let's acknowledge the truth and then play the part. Wherever we are, wherever we have been put to the best of our abilities, knowing that whatever we do, Vivekananda's words in his book Karma Yoga, written here, by the way, in the Vedanta Society of New York. So there he says that we play our parts, let's play our parts. We play them well or we play them badly, does not matter. All the merits, when you do it well, all the merits go to her, to the Divine Mother. Do them badly, all the faults go to her. And thus be thou free. Be free of the burden. He says, see, the thing he puts so beautifully, what we are doing here, right now. The same thing we can keep on doing, but we can spiritualize it. What's the difference? He says, right now you're doing it with the ordinary idea of duty. He calls it the midday scorching sun of duty. And then he is harsh about it. What is, after all, the so-called duty that people pursue? It is just greed and pursuit of pleasure and power and gain, and we give it the stamp duty. And then it destroys us. We spend all our lives, we are spent and used up and discarded at the end of this life, pursuing this like a mirage. Now what do you do then? He says the same thing we can do, but recognize the truth here. There's no duty for us. No duty at all. Recognize the truth that it's the Divine Mother who is, who is doing all of this. The entire universe is her creation, and she is doing all of this. And thus, what is in front of us? Let us do it as a worship of the Divine Mother. Let us do it as children playing with the mother. Let us do it in freedom. The same work. Recognize that everybody here belongs to the mother, or the mother herself is coming in the form of a husband, wife, father, mother, children, your co-workers, members in the community, as human beings, as animals and birds, in all these forms. And do the best you can, but without any attachment whatsoever, without forming this network of mine and this is mine and that's why I'm doing it. No, I'm doing it because all of these, your own children. Vivekananda gives the example that yes, they let the child be there and take care of the child. Just don't say internally, don't say my child. Think of it as the Divine Mother herself giving you an opportunity to worship her through that. And he says, thus be thou free. What's the point of it? It'll free you. It'll take a huge burden off from your shoulders while living this life, in and through this life. And then Sri Ramakrishna, he says, it's not good to argue, isn't it? It's interesting that he puts it that way, because I think Vaidyanath was all ready for argumentation. Free will, he's come to pick a fight. And Sri Ramakrishna says exactly something that runs opposite to our intuitions. He says there is no free will, really. Free will is only a delusion that we work with, like a practical thing that we sort of assume or we feel there is, and we follow it. We live our lives accordingly, but there really isn't. Now you would have expected him to argue at this point, and Sri Ramakrishna preempts him and says that it's not good to argue, isn't it? And he had already said that his nature is good. Vaidyanath caught on very fast. He said, yes, sir. He says, yes, sir. The desire to argue disappears when a man attains wisdom. Very interesting. In the Bhagavata, there is a place where Sri Krishna's friend and devotee Uddhava asks him for enlightenment. He says, teach me so that I become enlightened, but I am old. I'm really old now. I have no time. Don't teach me yoga and this meditation and that practice and that practice. I have no time and no ability to do anything. Just teach me so that I become enlightened. And Sri Krishna says there, I can. But the condition is, the one thing is that you must believe what I say. You must believe what I say. That's very that is very instructive. That is very significant for us. It tremendously shortens our path if you take the advice of an enlightened person. So Sri Ramakrishna says, thank you. And everybody bursts out laughing. He said it in English. And then Sri Ramakrishna said, you will make spiritual progress. People don't trust a man when he speaks about God. Even if a great soul affirms that he has seen God, the average person will not accept his words. He says to himself, if this person really sees God, then let him show him to me. And Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, you can see God. Everybody can and should and one day will also. But not so fast. It's not that easy. And then he gives a couple of examples of the person. The expert knows what the pulse beat means. We don't know. And in order to know that, you have to stay in the company of the expert doctor who will show you what this particular beat pulse means, what that pulse means, and what diseases they indicate. And then the other example he gave was of a cloth merchant who can just look at the cloth and tell you the thread count. And we don't know, it all looks the same to us. Maybe one looks a little finer than, but he can tell you the exact thread count. And then the music is about to begin. Just the drumming, the music, the singing has not started yet. Just the drumming, and in the anticipation of the singing about God, which is going to start. And the Sri Ramakrishna says, all the hair in my body is standing on its end. Look. See, even this feeling that, one of the things which gives pleasure, is anticipation of pleasure. You're anticipating meeting an old friend. You're anticipating eating your favorite meal. Whatever. Anticipation of joy or pleasure also gives pleasure. So here's Sri Ramakrishna anticipating that. See, the presence of God, the worship of God, talking about God, listening to the music about God, thinking about God, all of these should be sources of great joy, not a bore. Somehow it's good for me, I have to sit through it somehow. No, it's so much pleasure. Sri Ramakrishna said, look, the hair on my head, body is standing on its end. And the music has not started. The master passed into a deep spiritual state. Then they asked, what should we sing about? And they said, you sing about Sri Chaitanya. So they started. So this is a very, there's a certain stylistic. So if you listen to some of these kirtans, they are very popular in Bengal. It was a style of singing and dancing started by and encouraged by Sri Chaitanya himself about 500 years ago. Which you see here in the United States, it's popular because of the Hare Krishnas. Prabhupada, in fact, brought it from India across the oceans right here in New York. And that was before my time, but those of you who've been in New York for a long time, you would have seen that time, when the Hare Krishnas were at their heyday, the 1970s and early 80s, 70s and 80s basically. So the certain kind of songs are there, and those are played. So they have so at the beginning, the Bengalis know this Gaud Chandrika. So that means an introductory lines about the song will be sung. So here there is this singing about the beauty of the sheer physical beauty of Chaitanya. And he's compared to that he glows, his face, his smile illumines all the world. And who cares for even a million moons? One moon on a blue autumn sky is so beautiful, so evocative. It's a million moons in the blue autumn sky. Who cares when you see the face of Chaitanya? There are descriptions of Chaitanya in Puri, where he lived, where the great temple of Jagannath is there, from which the English word Juggernaut comes. Jagannath is Krishna, but in Puri is is the most important temple in the state of Orissa, which is on the eastern coast of India. And it's one of the great pilgrims sites of India, Puri. So Chaitanya lived near the temple, and he would have these ecstasies and this singing, and his devotees would surround him and play on these big drums and chant and sing the name of Krishna. And there are such amazing descriptions at night when he's singing and in ecstasy. He was toweringly tall, so he would sort of tower over everybody else, and they would all surround him and chant and sing and dance, and they would hold up torches, that means flaming torches or lanterns, And they would press around, when he would stand in ecstasy, they would press around so that the lanterns would illumine his face, to get a glimpse of that face. There was something extraordinary about it, which people saw and would never forget all their lives. It's a face of a person seeing God. And that's what people would see in Sri Ramakrishna. And there's multiple ecstasies. That's what entranced them. You'll see here, there's a description of Sri Ramakrishna singing and dancing along with the other Kirtan singers. But everybody is watching him. They're watching him in amazement. What's there to be so amazed about? This is a common musical performance in Calcutta, in those days at least. At these words, so the musician is improvising lines. The face of Chaitanya is bathed with the essence of a million moons. At these words, the master went into deep samadhi. Then he becomes aware of the world, and he stands up suddenly and he starts singing himself. So they sang about Radha and Krishna, and finally about the meeting of Radha and Krishna in the Nidhuvan. If you have it's not at all a very imposing or impressive little grove. It's still there now in Vrindavan. If you go, Nidhuvan, the place where Radha and Krishna sang and danced with the gopis. So you have gone, you will see that all the trees are quite stunted. It's become, it's like a desert area almost now. So trees are very small, and the place is enclosed, and the whole thing is surrounded by a very crowded city. But this place still has some kind of an extraordinary atmosphere. You can feel it. And it's one of the holiest places for Vaishnavas, Nidhuvan. The worshippers of Krishna, they go there. You will see millionaires or billionaires there sweeping the grove with a broomstick. And even now, people are not allowed to stay there after sunset, because the idea is that the dance of Krishna and the gopis is eternal. It goes on now, even now. But if you see it, you're going to die. Nobody who sees it will ever live in the mortal body again. So, and there are always these stories of people who hid there wanting to test it, and people discovered that they had died afterwards. In the next morning, they were not alive anymore. So the ecstasy is so much that you can't live after. Not related, but I remember this silly science fiction story I had read long back when I was a kid, but that impressed me. So the story is more like a joke than anything else. So when kids especially, when you hear of a big number, you get very impressed. 1,000 is big, and 1,000,000 is so big, and 1,000,000,000 is so big, and 1,000,000,000,000 is amazing. You can't even think about it. It's stunning. So a mathematician discovers a number which is so stunning that if you hear about it, you'll die. And he names it, obviously he names it the Killian. So it's a very dangerous number. If you see the number, if you understand what it is, you're going to die, because you'll be so stunned by how really big it is. There's a real story, something like that. It's not as silly as that, because the Google, the search engine, how the name came? I think 10 to the power 100, I think. 10 to the power 100? So that number, the computer scientist, he asked his baby son, what do you think it is? And the baby gurgled Google. And so they named it the Google. And 10 to the power of a Google is a Googleplex, I think. And when the search engine was made, they named the search engine Google. That's how the word Google is. It's babies gurgling. Google. Anyway, so the point is, intense emotion, intense love of God can throw you into samadhi. So after the music was over, as the music came to a close, the master Sri Ramakrishna would often, this is a formula he repeated often, Bhagavata Bhakta Bhagavan. Bhagavata means the scripture, the holy text. and Bhakta, the devotee, the one who loves God, and Bhagavan is God. And then, in front of everybody, he bowed down on the ground on which everybody had been dancing and singing, and he bowed down and touched the dust to his head, and he took the dust and he put it on his head, because this place is holy. For him, it is the same divinity. It is Krishna and Radha who are in the form of these devotees, literally for him. And they are singing and dancing. So it's like you're immersed in an ocean of divinity. The very place of that, very dust of that place becomes holy. That's why in Hinduism, 3 things are called the Pratyaksha Brahma, the visible Brahman. It's of course a matter of faith and devotion. So one is the prasad of Puri, the rice prasad, Jagannath prasad, the prasad which is offered to Lord Jagannath in the temple in Puri. That's supposed to be visible Brahman. It's so powerful. Sri Ramakrishna would always take a grain of it. I think for years he would keep a little bit of it and he would take a grain of it. I have a little bit of it with my possession also. When I was sent to the United States, at that time the General Secretary of our order, when I bowed down and said I'm going, I was sent to the Vedanta Society in Southern California. So he said, wait, I'll give you something. And from his drawer he took out a little bit of that and he gave it to me. So I haven't been eating it, otherwise it would have disappeared by now. But sometimes I put it to my head. So that is Jagannath Prasad, the visible Brahman. The other is the water of the Ganges, water of Ganga. Sri Ramakrishna would often chant that, Gangavari Brahmavari. The water of Ganga is the water of Brahman manifested in that way. And the third one is the dust of Vrindavan, where Radha and Krishna danced, the dust of that place. So in Vrindavan they'll give you a little bit of dust in a little packet to take away with you. So you have the water, a little bottle of Ganga water, a little packet of the dried rice prasad of Jagannath, and a little dust of Vrindavan. These are the 3 holiest things which Hindus believe is the manifestation of Brahman, a visible manifestation of Brahman. Then they went to the hall, and the image of it. Actually, the occasion was not Krishna. The occasion was worship of the Divine Mother as Annapurna. And says, what a beautiful expression. The light of the Divine Mother seems to have lighted the whole place. So for someone like Sri Ramakrishna, this place is lit up with a divine light, with a divine presence. And then he makes a comparison. He says, what about Vedanta? I am pure consciousness, existence, consciousness, bliss. Isn't that real also? He says, of course you can. But compared to the joy that you are feeling here, the bliss that you are feeling here, what the Brahmas, who are the contemporary, at that time, so what they sing, Brahman is, what does he say? Brahman is immutable, homogeneous. Even if you read it, doesn't sound very musical. You can't dance to existence, consciousness, bliss. You can't dance to that. That sounds too abstract and philosophical. And so he says, see the beauty. It is same reality. It's not that you are sacrificing something, but here is grace and beauty and joy. And then he makes a point. Short remark. Such a sight fills the heart with joy. The image of the Divine Mother which is being worshipped, and the hall filled with light as it were. Sri Ramakrishna says, such a sight fills the heart with joy. Grief and desire for pleasure disappear. It's a very profound thing. This is what we are, many of us, we are looking for. Some are looking for a way of overcoming sorrow and suffering. One way of overcoming, powerful, surefire way of overcoming sorrow and suffering is to fall in love with God. Then the sorrow of the heart goes away, whatever we are sorrowing for. Whatever sadness we have in our lives, that will go away when you fall in love with God. Another problem in our lives is that we are embroiled in this world by a search for pleasure. See, we are distracted in 100 different ways in life because we are searching for fulfillment, pleasure. Whatever in our pursuits in life, whatever you see, the nightlife outside here, people are out in search of pleasure. Sri Ramakrishna says that will also be fulfilled if you fall in love with God. These are the two things. Our sorrow, misery, suffering in the world, that is alleviated when your heart is full of love. That happens in human love also. See, whether we have some unhappiness in the world, but if you have deep love for somebody or something, for some cause, that makes everything worthwhile. But if you fall in love with God, that's 1,000 times more. And the search for pleasure goes away. The love of God is so meaningful, so fulfilling, that you don't want anything else anymore. In Vedanta, bhakti, the love of God, is considered to be the highest. It's the most precious, wonderful thing. So somebody put it this way. One monk put it this way. If you want, if you want a peaceful life, a clean conscience, sleep happily, burden-free, karma yoga, be selfless. Don't want anything for yourself. It will immediately lighten your life. A great burden will be removed from it. The moment we say, I do not want anything from anybody, nothing at all. And that can actually only be possible if you have found something which is limitless. Then you don't want anything. So karma yoga lifts the burden from you, burden of life. Second, if you want deep, deep peace in life, then Raja Yoga, meditation. The deepest peace can be found in deep meditation, profound, deep quietness. Vivekananda says, we must meditate, for it is then that we are at our most spiritual. When you have forgotten the world, when you have stilled the body, you've stilled the mind, the spirit soars free. And if you want to be happy, intensely happy right away and sustainably happy, then bhakti yoga, fall in love with God. And finally, so the climax is of course here, a non-dualist monk was saying this. And if you want the truth, then jnana yoga. Not to say that the others do not take you to the truth, they do, but there's a coating left there. The unvarnished truth about what reality is, non-dual Vedanta will get you there. And Vivekananda says, why take it as a choice? Have all of it. You can have all of it. You can have your cake and eat it too. Lead a life of selflessness and service. And once or twice in a day, turn away from even good works and this world and even from anything, and quieten the mind in deep meditation. And then cultivate a profound love of God in all the Divine Mother's forms in this world. And then realize that you are Brahman. So that's why even enlightened ones, Bhagavatam, there's a saying in the Bhagavatam, a verse which says that even the Paramahamsas who have realized their identity with Brahman, they also love God. And the reason they give there is Ittham Bhuta Harer Gunaha. Such are the amazing attributes of Hari, of God, of Sri Hari, of the Lord. So because God is so amazing, so lovable, that's why even the Paramahamsas who have realized I am Brahman, they also love God. Yes.
Swami, I was having a conversation with my partner the other day about free will.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's a really good way to upset people. Arguing that we don't have free will. But in my understanding, it leads to this idea that the unfolding of the universe, therefore, is perfect because it couldn't have unfolded any other way than it has. And then that draws into question the atrocities and the human events of great suffering, and the stance that could be no other way including people like Hitler and such and such. Can you speak to that?
Yes. What would Sri Ramakrishna say? He would say, no, it couldn't be any other way. It is all, even the evil, the terrible things, are the play of God. So instead of splitting it up into a good God and an evil, Satan, good and evil both must be the play of God. And the reality is beyond good and evil. Now, does that mean good and evil are the same? No, they aren't. The evil is further away from God, good is closer to God, but God is beyond both good and evil. So when we move towards God, we move from evil to good to God. But both good and evil are the play of God. Yeah. The evil is, so that means even the person who's evil, that particular soul in that particular embodiment has done evil. The soul itself, the spiritual being itself is not evil. It is just evolving through that that phase of spiritual evolution, and of course it has a long way to go. Even Sapolsky, who has upset quite a few people by arguing so strongly that there is no free will. He was asked, "What will happen to the world if people start thinking this way, that there is no free will? We're going to do," and he says, "No, it will actually be a kinder world." Yes. You can say that all of it, in the long run, one begins to see even the sadhakas who did so much spiritual practice, who, like all the great people we know, even somewhere there, it's the grace of God, actually, that they were able to do this. However, as far as we are concerned, from our end of the bargain, we believe in so many things. Why not take it in simple faith? This is how the Divine Mother keeps us involved in the world. We believe 101 things in this world, but when it comes to spiritual life and God, we don't want to believe. We suddenly become very skeptical. And this is how we remain in the game, in the game of Maya. Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. Yeah, I'll come to both of you. One monk said this. He was talking about Vedanta. In one place, in Ashtavakra Gita, Ashtavakra says, is the highest non-dual Vedanta. You are Brahman. The Ashtavakra says, Shraddhasva tata Shraddhasva matra moham kurushva bho. My child, have faith in these words, that you are Brahman and none other, and do not be deluded on this point. So this monk who was explaining it, he said, well, believe it because I am saying this. How do you know that you are the child of this mother and this father? And somebody said, well, because the nurse said so. And then this monk said, I'll tell you in Hindi and then translate. तो हम क्या nurse से भी गए गुजरे हैं? Am I lower on your scale of trustworthiness than the nurse? I am telling you that you are Brahman. All the texts are telling you that. All the great masters are telling you that you are one with God. Why not just believe it and behave accordingly? Even for a short while, you'll see it's actually a much better way of living. I'll come to it. Don't forget your questions. Vivekananda actually says that there are these two paths, only two paths open to us. There is a path of realizing that you are Brahman straight away, and then the game is over for you. But he says very few people can do that. Many people will come to an understanding of that. But very few people can embody it in their lives. It's very difficult. As Sri Ramakrishna said here, the rishis of old who were devoid of the least touch of worldliness, they realized in their heart of hearts that they are Brahman, Satchidananda. Then Vivekananda says, but for the rest of us, we must work our way through this world. We can't go directly to the truth. So he gives it the name of the Neti Neti, not this path of the Gyanis, and the Iti Iti path, this world itself. How can we use this for our spiritual progress? And there he gives that wonderful doctrine of that. See that this is all the Divine Mother. Give up the commonplace idea of duty. This is what I am doing. This is what we are supposed to do. No, give that up completely. Keep on doing the same thing, but now do it in freedom. That my mother has become, my Lord has become all of these. My Lord has put me in this place, in this work, engaged me in this. Let me play the game as best as I can, but All that which is good done by me, it goes to the Lord. All that is bad and insufficient done by me, that also goes to the Lord, and thus be thou free. But the condition of this is, Vivekananda puts it very beautifully, you must restrain, his words, the tentacle of selfishness. The desire to say, I, me, mine, and put the tentacle out into the world and grab a person, a place, a job, an activity, a hobby, a possession, an idea, a cause, I, me, mine, and hold on to that. No. It is all God. It is all the divine. It's all the Lord. And I am very happy to play the part that has been. My real life is limitless. I am one with the divine. What do I lose here? Nothing. What can I gain here? Nothing. I can only gain in spiritual maturity and ultimate freedom from this samsara. Yes. Yes, that would, we think so. Sapolsky was asked some question like this, wouldn't people do wrong things, or wouldn't it lead to inaction, everything is determined anyway? He said, no, try it. You can't. You'll still act. Good people will still do good things, bad people will still do bad things. Even after reading all the big books on how there is no free will, you cannot, because you are not free. So won't I stop acting? No, because there is no free will, so you will not stop acting. You will continue to act. Yes. Wait, just a minute. That gentleman raised, hold on to your question. You had raised your hand. Yeah. No arguments. Sri Ramakrishna said, good not to argue. So, there is a phase of arguments which is good, but this, what Sri Ramakrishna is talking about in this sequence is actually somewhat beyond, once you have done with the arguments. Anyway, but go ahead. Yes, arguments leading to wisdom. So that is the earlier stage, where you accept free will and there is karma. This is beyond that. Notice I said last time, all spirituality is to take you beyond karma. Karma is a description of how things are in this world, how they seem to be. But the reality lies beyond karma. Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, they all take you beyond karma. Karma is causality. And this world is ruled by causality. But God, Atman, Brahman, the clear light of the void, whatever you talk about, in whichever philosophy, all of them are beyond causality. And in order to go beyond causality, we have to go beyond karma. Vivekananda put it so beautifully, I have mentioned it a number of times in his poem, Song of the Sannyasin. He says, good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. That's karma. Good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. Whosoever wears a form wears the chain too. Form means body and mind. And each body and mind, each body is produced by past karma. And we are thrust into a particular set of circumstances, such and such parents, this is my health, this will be the limit of my life in this body. All of this is determined by past karma. It's predetermined. Good, good, bad, bad. And none escape the law. But whosoever wears a form wears the chain too. Then what can Vedanta do? What can spirituality do then? Then it's all karma, it's all causality. What can even God do? So Vivekananda, the next line Vivekananda says, but far beyond name and form is Atman ever free. Know thou art that, sannyasi bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. So here, notice, what he is doing here is, Sri Ramakrishna is approaching it through the way of devotion. He sets before you the Divine Mother or Krishna, the object of love, divinity, God as the object of your love. And when you hold on to that, you rise above karma. You are no longer doing good to get the results of good. You are no longer avoiding bad to avoid the pain of doing bad, the law of karma. See, the law of karma itself is a civilizational tool. It leads from animality, brutality to civilization. Modern psychology also. I was reading this very famous psychologist. His books are prescribed in all campuses now. They've run into 15 editions now. His name starts with Z. Zimmer. So, anyway, So he says that the difference between success and failure in life lies in this understanding of causality. It's the child who understands that I have to restrain myself and do my assignments, do my school work, or do my whatever, piano practice. And then I get twice as much, 10 times as much, instead of just throwing it away right now and watching, going out with my friends and having fun or partying. So I get some pleasure and happiness now if I give in to my impulses. If I do not give in to my impulses and do and put in the extra hard work, it pays off much more later on. It pays off much more later on. The psychologists these days, they call it the delayed gratification. The capacity to delay gratification, that is a crucial factor in success. And the psychologist, I keep forgetting his name. Zimbardo. Philip Zimbardo. Yes, thank you so much. Philip Zimbardo. He says that this is basically an understanding of causality. It's easy to say causes have effects, actions have consequences, but to understand it in your life means the ability to how causality plays out in our lives. I will set into motion the causes which will give me multiple, many times more results. I know how to manipulate the causes in my life, and so the results will be much better, hopefully. So this is causality. This is karma. You extend this further, it becomes karma. And a belief in multiple lifetimes. So do good, you will get good. Do evil, you will get evil. What happens when people when they lose belief in karma? One monk put it very so nicely. I'll tell you. He was saying in Hindi, and I'll translate. So he was talking about the India which he had seen in his childhood, where it was sort of everybody believed in karma. And now all these educated people are around who dismiss it all as, we don't believe in all of that. And he says the difference is this. In my childhood, I have seen people refusing to take bribes because they say, I can't do your job, do what you want by taking a bribe because I have children and grandchildren. That means he's afraid of karma, the karmic consequences of what will happen if I do an evil thing. And he says now people will say that I have to take a bribe, I can't help it, I'm sorry, because I have children and grandchildren. So the one who wants to take a bribe now because he has children and grandchildren is seeing exactly the material benefit which he gets by swindling people and taking bribes. Right now, the material benefit in this lifetime. The other person has a deeper understanding of causality, of morality also. That is being immoral now, and I will suffer because of this. The one sees the pleasant effects of doing bad right now and ignores or does not believe in the consequences. They wants to do the wrong thing now and reap the benefits, but doesn't see the consequences which are going to come. The other person sees the consequences and so is careful. So anyway, karma is a civilizational tool. So it's not a small thing. One has to be careful of karma. However, to be spiritual is to go beyond karma. The person who is careful, civilized, controlled, understands the kind of person Zimbardo is talking about, knows how to manipulate karma, knows how to do good, how to put in the extra work, how to sacrifice, so that he will get the results. The spiritual person says, I don't want the results. I don't want the results. Let everything go to the Divine Mother. There's nothing in this world which I want. I love my Lord, and everything that I do is a worship of the Lord. If there is something wrong, some mistake because it's inevitable. In life we do make mistakes. That also belongs to the Lord. And if there's anything good that I have done, worthwhile, that also belongs to the Lord. So in India, the results of karma are called the fruits of karma. So fruits of work. There's a very touching incident where the Holy Mother, Sharada Devi, she is going past somebody to whom she gives some fruits which she had offered in a worship, and she gives it the fruits to that beggar or a monk, and said, beggar I think, and says, take these fruits, my child, and take the fruits of giving these fruits too. All the good that has come out of whatever I do, take that also, because I don't want anything from. So that's transcending karma. Spirituality is transcending causality. More about this on Sunday. Freedom and karma, that's the subject. Swami Vivekananda on freedom and karma. I'll come to you, sir. That'll be the last question. Yes. Yes, you can. But keep in mind the spiritual reality behind everything. Yes. Every moment in this. So none of this life which we have been put into, the people we are with, the circumstances we are with, we often think these are all impeding my spiritual progress. If only people would let me, I would go to this monastery or mountain cave. I thought that way. So this mountain cave, and then I'll show you how I'll become illumined and enlightened. I'm sure I could become enlightened in a month or two. Given the right. Just the world is sort of keeping me down. That's why I'm not getting enlightened. No, but that's not true. If you take this attitude that it's the Divine Mother in everything, in every sense, and make the inner shift and keep on doing it. But you have to keep on doing it, because we tend to slip back. Sri Ramakrishna says the ego comes up again. So be careful about not leaning back on the pillow. Yes.
Just sort of a theoretical question. There's a thing called sins of the father, where it transfers to the children for 7 generations, that sort of thing. Is that true in the karma?
Yes, it's not just individual. It's family, it's community, a nation. We are impacted. And that's sort of natural also. The way our forefathers have lived, we are bearing the brunt. It spreads out over across the world, no doubt about it. In a very natural sense and in a karmic sense also. Yes. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. Even what we think not only ripples out, it also attracts to us. Vivekananda says something very scary. He says, what you think, the kind of thoughts that you harbor, they pull to you forces of a similar nature. Darkness, depression, unhappiness, it multiplies. Suddenly it becomes overwhelming, because there are such waves, such thought waves across the world. And he says just the opposite also is true. If you think positive thoughts of light and joy and peace and compassion, he says there are these, he says, like 10,000 angels on your side, tremendous forces of light and power which will come to your side. So he says, be careful of what you harbor in the mind. It calls out to the universe with power. And it says they are not individual or isolated. The danger is they call out to he calls out to the universe and pulls in, we don't know what demons you awaken, That's very frightening, that poet who says that beware of looking too long into the abyss. Beware of looking too long into the abyss, for the one who looks into the abyss notices and looks back at you. The darkness, if you stare too long into darkness, the darkness notices, here is a victim, and looks back at you, which is terrifying.